It's that time of the week when former football and sports stars share their stories. It happens all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate. With your hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. Guys, have some fun. Enjoy the guests. Take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for making Thursday Night Tailgate a part of your day. We are your home for interviews and conversations with the greatest legends in the history of the NFL. We're also home of the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari here to hopefully make your day a little more pleasant for you for the next couple of hours. TNT is brought to you tonight by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and the French Lick Resort. Tonight, Bob and I, we've got 5 great guests that we're looking forward to sharing with you. First up tonight is going to be former Colts and Ravens fullback Roosevelt Potts. We're excited to have Roosevelt with us. First time with us here on the show. He'll be up with us in about 15 minutes. At the bottom of the hour, we'll go through the divisional round of the playoffs with former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. Following Tony, our good friend and head coach over at Prairie View A&M, Willie Simmons, will be back with us. We'll kick off hour number 2 with former Dolphins and Bengals Pro Bowl tackle Richmond Webb, and then we'll round out the show with a return visit from TNT Hall of Famer and NFL stats guru Russell Baxter. So we are going to have a lot of fun on the show tonight, folks, and we are so glad that you are here to take the journey with Bob and I, like I say, over the next couple hours or so. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life. But we'll kick off the show like we do every single week, and that's the best way possible, and that's by bringing in my co-host, Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Been well, Chris. How about yourself?
Oh, very well, thank you. And, Bob, last week when we were sitting here, I was telling you we were bracing for snowpocalypse here in Atlanta, and a lot of it came to fruition. Now, here in Marietta, we got a lot of sleet. And it sleeted hard for several hours, a couple inches of ice, in the backyard, Bob. I think we had a good, probably half inch, out on the roads and things of that nature. And I tell you, you guys, you laugh at us because of, how we deal with, these sorts of events down here in Atlanta. But it really had the city, my son was out of school for, Monday and Tuesday of this week. So we had it on Friday, and that's all we got. What we got on, Friday night into Saturday morning. And then, that was it. But we were sort of, crippled in some way, shape, or form from Saturday morning all the way to Tuesday.
Well, I don't mean to laugh, Chris, but it's serious. Sleet is serious no matter where you get it. It is the worst type of precipitation. That storm resulted in about 8 to 10 inches up here. It was very cold up here, Chris. The temperature was about 20. So it was the very powdery stuff, but I had to be somewhere during that storm on Saturday, and I have been driving in this stuff for close to 40 years, Chris, and have never been on the roads that were that bad last Saturday here in New England. And it was just amazing. If you were on the highway, you could not see where the road started and ended. There was a 26-car pileup on I-91, a main thoroughfare here, and there was a jackknife tractor trailer on Route 691. It was just a nightmare for me to get home. A ride that usually takes me 20-25 minutes took me 2 hours, and just kissed the driveway when I got here. It was the scariest I've ever been in a car, and I've driven in blizzards from Fordham University back home when I was in college. Never saw anything like last Saturday here. And I'm sure some people who are listening, hopefully you weren't out in it, but if you were, you know what I'm talking about. But again, Chris, it's never good. Ice, that much snow, and especially on the weekends, not a good combination.
Yeah, no, not at all. And to your point, Bob, we hope everybody out there, was safe and that sort of thing. We make light, here down in Atlanta because of, how unprepared, if you will, or undermanned, if you will, from a snow plow and salt and all of those sorts of things, because it just, it's a rare occasion. So when something like that happens, down here. We don't have the equipment that most of our friends up in the northern part of the country do. So it tends to hit us and cripple our city much worse than others. But that's not to take anything away from making sure everybody is absolutely safe and doing the right things. And when the roads are that bad, then you should stay home. And that sort of thing. It's funny, Bob. Here we get we had some friends out at the grocery store, and we were talking about picking up some milk for us. And as you can imagine, here there's no milk, right? Milk and bread. There's no milk and bread if they're going to forecast snow. And got a snapshot of the milk aisle, and there was absolutely not a carton on it to be found. So that's how we hunker in. We're gonna eat a lot of cereal, and we're gonna have a lot of sandwiches. That's how we prepare for snowstorms here in Atlanta.
Well, hopefully that'll be the worst this winter, Chris.
Exactly right. All right, so Bob, let's go around the league a little bit. Let's talk about some of the major stories that have happened. And boy, we had a big one today, right? We learned that the Chargers are going to move back to L.A., where they actually started out once upon a time. You look back at their rich history, and back in 1960 when they were in the American Football League, they were in L.A. at that time. So, Bob, your thoughts on the city of San Diego losing the Chargers?
Well, anytime you have a franchise that's been anywhere for over 50 years, Chris, whether or not you followed them or like them, it is kind of a sad thing because you do feel for the fans that have been there the entire time. That's an awful long time. And you figure people that are in their 60s and 70s who are still rabid football fans in that area, Chris, have been following them for 57 years. And it is an incredible run, but sad, and it's just a sign of the times. You hear a lot of different sides of the argument, Chris. Number one, that last year at this time, the NFL was probably going to help them more than they would now. They gave them an option. Spanos, the family, to their credit, they said, let's give it one more year, see if we can get any financing, put it up to vote, whatever. Just did not pan out. And you can't really blame them, Chris. It did go to vote but there's that other side of the story that people said, we've been, for 15 years, we have not been able to vote on this. We've only gotten that one vote in 15 years, and that was only one scenario where we didn't have any options but to vote against it. There's a lot of politics involved, as you can imagine, with any move. Just ask the Raiders and Al Davis, and we can go on and on about that. But it is very sad, Chris. But in the end, it did come to vote this past fall. It didn't pass, and Spanos had no choice, basically, to these franchises revolve around stadiums, Chris. And if you can't get a new one, you're not going to stay around. And, of course, that stadium is antiquated by anyone's standards. No matter how well they keep it. But it's pretty sad, and I feel for the fans there. The NFL probably wanted them to stay in San Diego because they're not sure if two teams can coexist in L.A. and get that fan base. So it's not a good thing for as far as the NFL is looking at right now. But they would have to have two teams in that city doing well for these franchises to do well financially. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I just feel for the fans in San Diego that it's an end of an era for them. And if you look at their new logo, it looks like the old USFL's LA Express. And so good luck to them, Chris. It's just I'm still getting used to saying LA Chargers now. I'm going to have to say that 10 times a day for the next week here.
Yeah, and the thing you point out, Bob, the thing I feel worst about, right? The worst thing that I feel is for the fans in San Diego. I just I hate it when teams leave behind a fan base and a loyal fan base. Boy, and as a Steelers fan, even way back when, right, back in the late '90s when the Browns up and moved to Baltimore, and the Cleveland Brown fans were sort of left. As much as I've hated the Browns my whole life, right, I felt horrible for the Cleveland Brown fans, right? I just, to think that your team that you've been loyal to, and the fans going there, and in the, all those years in the, in the mistake by the lake, right? And the snow and the cold, and you're braving all of those things, and the dog pound, and all of that, right? To think how rabid those fans were for their Cleveland Browns, and to have that team move, I thought was just wrong. It's just wrong to have that happen, to them. And now here we are with the Chargers and San Diego losing their team, and they're wonderful fans, and we've got wonderful relationships with the guys over at bob-lazzari. Our good friend Dave there, and all the folks that he has as contributors, and now they're going to lose their team, their beloved Chargers. Boy, it just really hurts to see something like that happen. And you talk about the vote, right? And it got voted down. New stadium got voted down 57-43. So I guess on some level the people spoke, and you look at the Spanos family and the ownership of the Chargers. Bob, they're going to pay $650 million. And a relocation fee to the NFL, and that money is going to get split up between the other NFL owners, and they're only going to have to pay $1 per year for tenant fees once they make the move over to LA, and that that stadium isn't going to open, Bob, for a couple more years. 2019 is when they're looking for that new stadium to be open. So for the next 2 years, they're going to be playing at StubHub Center, which is a soccer facility, holds about 30,000 people. So right, everything comes down to money, right? It always does. So it's going to be interesting to see, what are the revenue pluses and minuses. You're ponying up $650 million to move, and now you're moving into a stadium not even half the size of the one you were in. So the 30,000 people, and I hope the 30,000 people are going to pay, exorbitant prices to make up for, all the attendance that, revenues that they're going to lose. So I would hate to think that the fans in L.A., and to your point, Bob, one of the things is, can L.A. support two teams, right? Haven't we seen this movie before, when the Rams and the Raiders were both there, and that didn't go well, right? Which forced the Raiders, thank God, to move back to Oakland, back to their loyal fan group that they left. But it just, what it sparks to me, or the question that comes up in my mind, Bob, is if we can't learn from history when it didn't go well the last time, what makes us think that it's going to go well a second time around? That's shouldn't we learn from history? Isn't that what it's all about, right? We don't make the same mistakes that we made before. We learn from that. I don't know, maybe the economics, maybe this new plaza and this new stadium, the $2+ billion stadium, maybe they can make that work, but it didn't work last time, and I'm not sure why they think it's going to work this time.
The logistics of it all, Chris, tell you that only one team can really make it. So these two teams are going to be basically competing against themselves. Never mind the on-the-field stuff. They're going to be marketing the heck out of things. They're already saying about the 30,000 people venue you spoke about. That's about half as much as you would want. I mean, they're already marketing the intimacy that the fan will experience. But you're right. What are they going to pay? Twice as much as probably they would have at a 60,000 stadium. I was under the impression, or I just assumed, that they would probably share the Coliseum or whatever. But that kind of shocked me in a way. A setting like that, it's almost like arena football in the NFL for 2 years. So that'll be interesting to watch, both there and on TV. But it's got a lot of. We'll probably know more 3-4 years down the road, Chris. Who's in charge of LA?
All right. Bob, one more before we've got our first guest, Roosevelt Potts, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Roosevelt here in just a couple of minutes. Bob, one other thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, and we talk about the Raiders, and speaking of them, I was stunned to read that they were not expected to retain offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave. After a season in which they finished 6th in total yards, 7th in average points scored per game. A year Derek Carr, what a great season that young man had before the injury came about. But he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and yet they're going to let Musgrave go. And I believe it's because Jack Del Rio, right? I think Del Rio wanted to run the ball more frequently than they did. The other part of this whole sort of Raider equation, Bob, that doesn't make sense. We're going to get rid of Bill Musgrave. But on the opposite side, the Raiders' defense finished 26th in the league. They retained defensive coordinator Ken Norton Jr. It's sort of the whole Raider thing right now, Bob, doesn't make sense to me.
Totally agree. When I read about it, Chris, totally stunned. It makes no sense whatsoever. Musgrave, think about Carr. 2 Pro Bowls under this guy's tutelage when Musgrave really put a stamp on it. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Carr's talent, but Musgrave, Carr would be the first to tell you that, throwing 60 TD passes and 20 picks, this guy has a lot to do with it. He's tutored him a lot. There's more to it, I think, Chris, than we'll ever know or read about because just their explanation was that his contract just expired and they decided to go in another direction. I don't buy that. Something else we're never going to probably find out. Maybe it was an agreement just to go, but trust me, this guy for the last 20 years has been either a quarterback coach or a coordinator. He will land on his feet somewhere. He's very, very valuable.
Yeah, exactly right, and I'm interested to see where that does end up happening. There's a lot of teams that could use a guy like Bill Musgrave, so it's going to be, like I say, it's going to be an interesting thing, like you say as well, Bob, to find out where he ends up, and that's going to be a very lucky team. All right, everyone, like we do here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate, we want to send out a big thank you to our military personnel who are listening in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Folks, we can't tell you thank you often enough for doing what you do to protect all of us in our way of life. For everyone else that's listening in, we certainly appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for making Thursday Night Tailgate a part of your weekly routine. We hope you'll join us in thanking our brave men and women that are out there serving, in our military system. If you happen to see a member of our military out in your daily life, wherever you might be, right? You're in the grocery store, you're in the airport, you're out and about, you're in a restaurant, please stop for a moment and tell those folks thank you. They are our true heroes. We also want to thank our veterans for your service and your sacrifices that you and your families have made for us over the years. Big thank you as well to Sean Cruz and the great folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. We are so honored that Thursday Night Tailgate is a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. And veterans, please continue to check out. You hear us talk about it every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. globalvoiceforveterans.org. What a great site with a wealth of information specifically geared towards our veterans out there. You're going to find a lot of good articles, a lot of things that are beneficial to you on that site. Please check it out, globalvoiceforveterans.org. TNT is sponsored by Kaiven Foods. NFL star Reggie Kelly, and TNT Hall of Famer, brings his authentic flavors of traditional Southern cooking to market with his Kaiven Foods products. Made with the finest ingredients, Kaiven Food invites you to appreciate the goodness of the exceptional flavors of their salsas, sauces, and apple butter, and so many other fine products as well. Make Kaiven items part of your playoff tailgate needs or your home gating needs as well. The taste is unbeatable, folks. It's available on Walmart.com and at select Kroger stores. You can go online and order through Amazon or Kaiven's site itself, Kaiven82.com, and Kaiven is spelled K-Y-V-A-N. Again, Kaiven82.com. TNT is also sponsored by Dr. Peter Candelora and the great folks over at Coastal Orthopedics. Folks, if you're an athlete or a weekend warrior and you're dealing with injuries or discomfort, wherever it might be, whether it's in your knees, your shoulders, your hips, or any of your other joints, don't just live with it. Do what athletes do to get relief, and that's contact Dr. Peter Candelora. He can get you back to enjoying life. For more information or to schedule a consultation, visit them online at athleteinjuries.com. That's athleteinjuries.com. Baseball season, right? It's certainly well in the rear view, but we've got pitchers and catchers not too far on the horizon, folks. And if you love the game, you got to check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. They were inducted into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame, and the museum is such a cool experience for everybody in the family because you get to walk their live production line and see some of their 1.8 million bats that they make every year. Plus, you get to see the Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit that's still there. Some bizarre baseball treasures there for you to take a look at. Don't miss the Bat Vault. You hear me bragging about that place every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate because you get to walk inside and hold game-used bats from some of the game's greatest legends. Guys like Hank Aaron, Ted Williams, my hero growing up, Willie Stargell. They're all in there. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, you name it, they're in there. So to find out more information and to book your visit to the museum, go to sluggermuseum.com. And please also check out our friends at the French Lick Resort. You want to talk about a fantastic place to stay and play golf. Or now it's in the winter, right? You can simply go there, relax, and enjoy yourself. What a fantastic setting they have up there at the French Lick Resort. If it's warm enough to play golf, they got 2 championship golf courses there on the property, one designed by Pete Dye, the other by Donald Ross. The Pete Dye course hosted the Senior PGA Championship last year. They also hosted the LPGA Legends Championship. The Donald Ross design course was the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship victory all the way back in 1924. Got a great spa right there on site and a casino as well, my friends. To find out more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. All right, now joining us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Roosevelt Potts. Let me give you some more background on Roosevelt. He is from Rayville, Louisiana, which is in the northeastern part of the state. He played his college ball at the University of Louisiana at Monroe, where he is second all-time in rushing yards and rushing attempts and seventh in rushing touchdowns. He led them in rushing in back-to-back seasons in 1990 and 91. He was a second-round draft pick in 1993, the 49th selection overall by the Indianapolis Colts, and he played running back and fullback in the NFL from 93 to 98 for the Colts, Dolphins, and Ravens. Over the course of his playing career, he rushed for just under 1,500 yards, had another 863 yards receiving, and he scored 5 touchdowns, and we're excited to have him with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Roosevelt, Chris and Bob here. Thank you for joining us.
Well,
Chris, thank you. You and Bob, how you guys doing tonight?
excellent.
Oh, fantastic. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Having a good time. I like all them good things you guys said about me. Did I really do all that stuff?
Yes, you did.
Hey, yes, you did.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yes, it is. So, Roosevelt, I want to start our time with you tonight by talking about your time at your alma mater, the University of Louisiana at Monroe. A guy of your size and talent, I have to believe there were other schools sort of vying for your talents. So talk about what other schools were recruiting you, and why did you end up choosing ULM?
Well, I really didn't end up choosing ULM, but I can tell you the story how I got there. Everybody recruited me. I was the top recruit in the state. I actually had signed with Ole Miss University, and during that time, the NCAA was everybody like LSU. Everybody was upset because I didn't go to LSU, and they thought there was something going on. So the NCAA made a rule that I couldn't go to neither school. So I ended up going to the school 20 miles from my house that they was glad to get me.
Yeah, I bet they were, too. So, people may not know a lot about the football history at Louisiana Monroe. And when I was doing the research, Roosevelt, I saw that, the school had won the Division I AA National Championship back in 1987 when Stan Humphries was the quarterback there. And along with you and Stan, there have been some really good NFL players to come out of Louisiana Monroe. Guys like, Marty Booker, former Dolphins and Bears wide receiver, former Bears defensive back Chris Harris, former Steelers quarterback Bubby Brister was there. And you were there with current Eagles head coach Doug Peterson. Talk about playing with Doug.
Oh, playing with Doug, it was like that's what I was just going to say. You said everybody but Doug. But when I came in, Stan was leaving out and Doug was there, and playing with Doug. Doug was a smart guy. Back then, he was always talking about, the skills about the game, or tell me if I wanted to make it to the league, I should be smart, learn what the quarterback do, learn what everybody do. He kind of coached me up coming in as me being a young guy, with him being a senior. I played with Jackie Harris. I had two good captains that showed me how I go when I was there.
And like I mentioned, Roosevelt, in the intro, you were drafted in the second round by the Colts, 49th selection overall. Curious, first of all, did you know the Colts were interested in you heading into the draft, and were you perhaps hoping to fall maybe a couple of more slots where the Saints were picking so you could end up a Saint?
Well, listen, it's really strange. You might think I knew I was going to go to the Colts, and I can tell you exactly how I got the audition. When you know how they have those the Senior Bowl and all these different games, I got invited to the Senior Bowl, and that year the coach Ted Marshall-Broder was the head coach of the South team, and but also that was a rough year. Alabama was the national champions that year, and they had all those running backs, and they ended up bringing me in behind all those Alabama running backs, and one day, that first day, went around and they was calling all these guys. I seen them play on TV, and I come from this small school, and they just kept getting rotation, Miami, Alabama, all the big schools. And then I just got tired of it. I just went and jumped in. The guy asked me what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to take me a play. And I said, I'm going to take me a play, man. They said, well, you ain't on here. I was like, man, I've been here 2 days, and I ain't got a play yet. I gotta try to make it. You gonna bring me here, and I did it all out. And the guy said, the running back coach, which is Gene Hewitt, he said, well, go on, get in. You know what you're doing. I had studied the book all night, and it was kind of like my offense. And I got in there, man, and did good. And man, that was lights out. It was lights out.
Bob, questions for Roosevelt?
Roosevelt, it's great to speak with you. Happy New Year and a belated happy birthday, Chris. He had one last week, so we always like
thank
to
you.
And, looking back at your career, Roosevelt, when you came into that league in '93, head coach of the Colts, Ted Marchibroda, Chris and I have talked to many guys who played for him. Most of them seem to enjoy him. He was an under 500 coach for his 12 or so years, but seemed to be pretty well liked. I wanted to get your opinion of him, and what kind of legacy do you think he left?
Oh man, he left. I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna tell you how much I love him. Now, a country guy like me from a small Rayville, Louisiana. Yeah, after I came in and got drafted. They cut you a check right there. Whatever you got. You know what I mean? So here this 19-year-old kid that done cut me a check for $1 million, and I don't know what to do with it. And I go talk to the coach, Ted. It's like, hey, I ain't never had this money. He's like, sit down. He's like, well, what you want me to do with it? I said, I want you to keep it. I said, I want you to keep it. He said, well, you know what? I ain't never heard that before. And me and him had a good, after I did that, he helped me keep my money, and actually his son ended up being my agent. You know what I mean? So it was I played for Ted, but Ted brought me to Baltimore too. I was more like Ted's son, so it was it was hard for me to leave, but it had to happen. But he brought me right back. So Ted was a good man. He was a good coach. He wasn't under 500 because he wasn't a good coach. He treated you like a man. This is what he said. If I had to get you ready to play the game, that I just brought you from Rayville, Louisiana. This is what he told me one day when I got in trouble. Like, my first couple of days there, I wasn't, turning out. I was tired. It was hard. And he came and told me and set me down. He said, hey, if I have to get you ready to play this game, one of the greatest games in the world, and I done brought you out of poverty and all these different things, and you don't care enough to take care of it, I'm going to send you back to Rayville. That's all he had to say. And after he said that, I sat down and I got it together, and I played as a rookie. And like I said, he passed away. This past year, it hurt everybody that knew Ted. And they had just made me a legend the same week when we both got a chance to sit at the game together. Like a couple of weeks before he passed, and it was a unique idea. He was a good guy. He told me stories. He admired me, and I admired him. He told me he loved me. He did that. And you don't get that. You don't get that from the NFL playing with a guy like that. And like I said, I seen Ted get mad one time, and you probably remember this game. It was one of the greatest games that we ever played. I mean, we was playing down and we was playing the Jets, and we was down 21-0 or something. And we went into their halftime. I never seen him do anything. But he stood up and he came and he said, you guys are blowing everything up. You're messing up. And he took his hand and he knocked all the Gatorade off the table.
Wow.
Man, we came back out and won that football game. That's the worst thing I ever seen him do is knock Gatorade off. I'm serious. I'm serious. He was a man. He was coming to you, Rosie. I'm going to have to get rid of you if you don't do your job. He was just that kind of guy. He was a good man. The organization was a good organization. You have a lot of people. I love the coach. That's why I'm here in Indiana. I love Baltimore. I played at Miami, but between Baltimore Ravens and the coach, man, they just was a good organization for me. And we have had relationship since I've been out of the league, and that's been since '99. So I stay in contact with them. They have made sure I've been okay all these years. So I never knew that the relationship would last as long as it's been 25 years, man. So yeah. I think, and I had some ups and downs, but they stayed right there with me. And there's no better than to have something like that when things are upside down or right side up, Yeah. So it's been good for me.
Roosevelt, I always tell Chris my favorite players, and he knows, are fullback type running backs and tight ends because they do so many of the things that don't get noticed in the box score and are the ultimate team players. And it seemed like even after your rookie year, you never carried that many times before, but under March Abrota, it seemed like you became an even more complete player because you were blocking, you were running, you were catching passes. This had to be something that was instilled in you way before you got to the NFL as far as being a team player. It must be something you're incredibly proud of.
Yes, I mean, you know what? Being a team player was easy if you could take it the right way. I always wanted to be good at whatever I did. And if you be good, when I knew being good, if I was good, it didn't matter if I was black. It didn't matter if I was ugly. It didn't matter if I was fat. It didn't matter. You know, the people, all that stuff just all went away. You know, it was a different world, and you know, you could change people's mind. And, you know, when you start really learning at a young age how you can, like, influence people, it makes you grow fast, and you become a powerful person, you know, once you get older at this age now. You know, I ain't just sitting around doing nothing. I got kids that I'm raising. I got kids going to college at Tulane. I got a son that's like the #1 player here in the state of Indiana. I just had the whole Purdue school here tonight, this morning, Cincinnati. The work is never done, and it's like just watching yourself grow, man, and just trying to enjoy life, you know, and I can enjoy it, and I just be trying to, like, just put everything in perspective and just try to be a good guy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And Roosevelt, you know, one of our really good friends here on this show is former Colts linebacker Jeff Harrod. Jeff has joined us many times. He's a member of our Hall of Fame. You played with him for a few years. What do you remember about Jeff, and what was it like going up against him in practice?
Hey, Jeff, the one that made me start. Tell Jeff thank you.
Is that right?
Jeff Harrod was the baddest linebacker. When I came to the Colts, we had the two of the baddest linebackers in the league, Jeff Harrod and Quentin Coryat. And when I came there as a rookie, the first thing that the coach put us in was goal line defense. And it was live back then. And Jeff Harrod was the middle linebacker, and Quentin was the slam linebacker. And they gave me the ball, but it was 10 plays, and I got 10 touchdowns. And they said that, and they made me tough. And on the last play, me and Jeff hit head and head on that goal line. I got up and he didn't, and I made the team right there. I started from day one. Hey, ask Jeff about it. You know how Jeff is. He'll tell a different story.
Yes, he will.
Yes.
But I told Jeff, and I always tell Jeff, if it weren't for him, I would have never been the rookie running back starting if it weren't for him, because he was a #1 pick, and they put him on goal line, and he brought it too. I mean, Jeff was tough. He was tough. Sure did. I ran right over him. They say, do it again. Same play. And I'm like, this is the pros. They said, this is the pros. They don't care about, you know, you can hear your high school coach say, run it again. You know what I mean? But they said in the pros, that's something different. Like, man, they know we're going. They said, well, everybody know you're going in the pros. So, and I was like, oh, okay. Get back in there and run it, man. Jeff made me famous. He won't get no sleep over there. I hope he's listening.
I'm sure he'll hear about it because he listens to the show all the time. So you might get a phone call after that story.
He calling in right now. Probably be calling my phone. But you know what? And I'm gonna tell you what Jeff did do, though. I'm gonna tell you Jeff took me up on his wings too. Jeff showed me how to relax. You know, he was from Alabama. You know, and I got up in the years when I was, you know, after my second year. You know, he brought me over to his big old place and showed me how to fish in his backyard, and, you know, showed me how to bass fish and, you know, hang out, showed me how to spend my money. It was a good old time. It was a good old time, man.
So, Roosevelt, one more before we let you go, and just as you talk about, you know, going up against, you know, Coryat and going up against, you know, Jeff, and you know, fullback is, you know, obviously one of the most physical, you know, positions on the field. So I'm curious, as you know, you made the transition from running back to fullback, and then having to be the lead blocker. Who were some of the guys, you know, that you traded really big shots with over the years?
I'm telling you, Teddy Bruschi. You know, Teddy Bruschi. And I had to block defensive ends. Even though you talking linebackers, in our league, I had to block guys like Bruce Smith, you know. I had to block Bryce Pop, Junior Seau, all those guys. Mike Singletary, and Ray Lewis. Listen, I'm gonna tell you the best linebacker. I call Jeff on the later ends and Quentin Coyott in the middle. But I'm gonna tell you what, Ray Lewis was the best linebacker I ever played with. I had to practice again. It was almost like playing a game. Ray Lewis is. I wish I could have had his. I was tough, but he just, you know, when you're an athlete, you be truthful about what's going on. This dude just had something that you couldn't even, you couldn't understand it. It was something totally different. You know, I thought I was maxed out. Every, you know, athlete, full-blown athlete that's a pro, you get to this certain, what they would call it, euphoria, to where you can get to, but he can get to one that just is just at a different level, man. And I would say Ray Lewis. I got a chance to get some of my man from Chicago, but Ray Lewis, man, Ray Lewis was a good football player. I'm telling you.
No doubt. Roosevelt, how can our listeners stay up to date with the things that you're doing now and follow you, whether it's online or over social media?
Well, I really don't mess around on social media. I got a little Facebook thing that I be on that they can hit me up. I really just I just be around in all the different places. If you're hanging out with the regular folks, you'll find Rosie. Hey, if you're hanging out with the regular people, you won't find. Listen, I got places now where I go sit and everybody know me. It ain't Roosevelt Potts, it's just Rosie. You know what I mean? I can go. Yeah. I'm enjoying my life and watching my kids and just trying to just watching the world and watching Trump.
Well, Roosevelt, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to be a part of the show. We hope you'll come back and do it again sometime. I had a lot of fun with you.
Man, you can call me anytime, man. If you want to do that, call me anytime, man. I love to be doing something like that. I ain't very expensive. I'm just chilling. I don't need nobody. I'm just chilling. I just need stuff to do, man. You can have this session on me. Call me somewhere, and in that place, and you find out where you at on this Thursday or anything, any kind of show, man. I'm around all kind of people, man. I hang out with everybody.
That's fantastic. Good for you. Thank you again, Roosevelt, for your time tonight. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to doing it again real soon.
Okay, thank you, brother.
You bet.
All right, take care. That is former Colts, Dolphins, and Ravens fullback Roosevelt Potts. What a fun guy. That was a good time, Bob. I enjoyed getting to spend a few minutes with Roosevelt.
Yeah, it sounded like an old fullback, right, Chris? Salt of the earth,
yep.
Down to earth. Yeah, great stories, great stuff, and you know, from the guys in the trenches. Not to take away from any other positions, but my goodness, those old fullbacks and tight ends, they give us some of the most up close and personal stories. And man, what a great regular guy, man! It's just we love guests like that, and that's why we'll have him back on again.
That's exactly right. I'm sure we just scratched the surface with his great story. So hopefully we get the opportunity to have Roosevelt back on really soon. All right, we've got our next guest, Tony Collins, hanging on the line. We'll go through our picks for the divisional round. We'll do that on the other side of this station identification.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with us on the Kaiven Foods guest line in his weekly regular time slot is former Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins to go through our picks for the divisional round of the playoffs. Hey, Tony, how are you tonight, my friend?
Hi, Tony.
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Chris and Bob?
All right, Tony.
Really good now, Tony. Thank you so much. So, Tony, you know, last week you and me, boy, we had a good week, 3-1, you know, and that would be really great, except for when you're going up against Bob-Lazzari, who was 4-0. So, Tony, unless Bob loses his mind between now and the Super Bowl, I think we're sunk, my friend. I don't know that I think the only shot we got, I think we got to reverse the order. I think we got to make Bob pick first, and then we're going to have to be like George Costanza and do the opposite if we're gonna, if we're gonna catch up.
Yeah, I think he got us this year, man.
Yeah, well, Bob, 4-0 last week. He's now 20 games over 500, 42-22-1. I'm 39-25-1, so I'm 3 games back. And Tony, you're 37-27-1, so you're 5 games back. And we only got 7 games left to pick, so yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into it. We got our first game this week. It's the 11-5-1 Seattle Seahawks going to the 11-5 Falcons. The Falcons are a 5-point home favorite. The over/under is 51.5, Tony. So, Tony, which one do you like better? Do you like the Falcons' offense, which has averaged nearly 34 points a game in the regular season, or Seattle's defense, which has only given up 18? Do you like offense, or you go on defense?
I love the offense, man. Atlanta has a great offense. They do a lot of scoring, and they're playing at home. I mean, it's going to be crazy in the dome. But man, I you know what? Seattle right now playing pretty good ball. Their defense and their quarterback can work some magic like he always does. I'm going with Seattle beating them 27-24. Seattle.
All right. Bob, what do you think?
This was a tough one, guys. Pondering it throughout the week. Atlanta's probably the hotter team, and you nailed it, Chris. Atlanta better offense, Seattle better defense. Situation like that, you kind of say to yourself, "Now, Seattle's missing one of their better defensive backs, and Atlanta can capitalize on that. They're at home. Seattle's just they're a below-average road team, guys. So I'm going to go against Tony on this one. I'm going to go with Atlanta at home. I think there's going to be some points scored. I'm going to say Atlanta can win this game 34-28.
34-20. All right. Well, guys, I'm sticking with my mantra, right? I say it all the time. Defense wins championships, right? And Seattle they don't give up points, right? Their defense was 8th against the pass. The Falcons were 28th against the pass and 27th in average points allowed per game at 25.4. So not a good ratio, right? When you're averaging giving up a lot of points and the team you're facing gives up very few, right? Last week, Thomas Rawls, nice job running the football for Seattle, had 161 yards against the Lions. Now, the Lions were 18th against the run this season, Falcons 17th, right? So look for, similar results this week from Thomas Rawls. So I'm with Tony. I'm taking Seattle to win this game 30-27. So, Tony, we got hope. We went against Bob on the first one. Maybe we can gain a game. There's one. That's right. All right, our next game is the 10-7 Texans going to the 14-2 Patriots. The Patriots are an amazing 16-point home favorite, and the over/under is 44.5. So, Tony, we know you think the Patriots are going to win this game, but they're facing the number 1 overall defense during the regular season. Texans were 2nd against the pass, so can they keep the game closer than the 16-point spread? I guess is what we should be asking you.
If you go back to regular season, I believe New England beat them without Brady, and I think they even shut them out. I don't know, man. It's going to be a different ball game this time, though. I think Houston will come out playing a little hard, but with no prevail, man. There's no way they can go in New England and beat my boys right now. So it may be close. Then again, it may not be close, and I'm thinking that it's not going to be close. I'm going 37-17 New England.
All right. Bob, what do you got?
I got it almost exactly like Tony. I have it 38-13. I just think Houston is an awful road team, and how can you come up here in New England in January and expect to have a shot against a team that's well-rested, well-coached, as the best quarterback? And it's a recipe for disaster. That's about all I'm going to say. 38-13, Chris.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to what you guys have. I mean, Texans defense is pretty good. Like I said, 2nd against the pass. They allowed less than 100 yards rushing per game as well. So, and they were 11th in average points allowed. So they're a solid defense. Now, what folks may not know is the Patriots defense was number 1 overall in average points allowed, during the regular season, 15.6 points per game. So the Patriots defense playing very well. And looking at the Texans offense, like what we saw last week, I'm not sure they could score 15 points if you spotted them 10. So I'm with you guys. I'm going to take the Patriots as well. I think it's a blowout just like you guys do. I got it 34-14, so we're very close across the board there. Third game this week, fellas, my 12-5 Steelers going to the 12-4 Chiefs. The Chiefs are a 1.5-point home favorite. The over-under is 44. So, Tony, can my boys go into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs for a second time this season?
I tell you what, man, your boys playing some good football, man. They are. They're Bell and Brown and Big Ben. You can't stop them guys, man. They're just playing fantastic. But they got to go to Kansas City, and they got to play in Kansas City. So it makes it a whole different scene. Man, this is really going to be a really great game. Can't wait to watch this one. But I think Kansas City's going to win it 27-26 by 1 point.
All right. Bob, what do you think?
That should be a great game. Any game that's in Kansas City in the postseason is going to be pretty electric. And we know they're a good home team. And the Steelers, the way Bell is playing, Chris, I don't think any defense in the league can defend that guy. How versatile he is. He's healthy. He seems driven. Roethlisberger, a little gimpy after last game, but we know how tough this guy is. And I just think the Steelers, with the pedigree, the playoff experience, it's going to be a little bit too much for Kansas City to spoil a good year. I think the Steelers come out of there winning 28-24. All
right. And guys, like you say, Steelers have won 7 in a row. Now their defense is playing a whole lot better over that stretch. And I think Le'Veon Bell is the key. The guy's just amazing. In my opinion, the best running back in the league, because not only can he, run the football like nobody else can, but he's also a huge threat, catching the ball out of the backfield. Set a Steelers playoff record last week, 167 yards rushing against the Dolphins. Now, the caveat here is, Ben Roethlisberger has not been spectacular over the last several weeks. He hasn't had a 300-yard, plus passing performance, since Week 10 against the Cowboys. And over his last 5 games, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not good. But, I like the way the defense is playing. Alex Smith is not a guy that's going to scare you, right? He finished 22nd in the league in passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions during the regular season, so not a lot there. And the Chiefs defense, guys, 24th in yards allowed, 26th against the run. Now, they were 7th in average points allowed, so they were sort of a bend but don't break defense. But if you're going to let Le'Veon Bell run all over you, again, 26th, against the run, he's going to end up in the end zone a bunch of times. So I'm going to take my boys. I think they win this one pretty handily, 30-17. Our last game, Tony, is the 11-6 Packers going to the 13-3 Cowboys. The Cowboys are a 4.5-point home favorite. The over/under is 52. So, Tony, can Aaron Rodgers and the Packers make it 8 straight wins, or do the Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott run their way to the NFC Championship game?
This is going to be another great game to watch. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, they're playing great football right now. I just think the Cowboys' offensive line is just going to be too overpowering for Green Bay as far as scoring. I mean, it'll be close in the beginning, but Cowboys is just too much for them, man. I just feel that those young legs in the third and fourth quarter are going to pay off, and so I'm going with Dallas, 37-30.
All right, bit of a high-scoring game from Tony. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Tony. I just think Green Bay, for as good as they looked last week and as bad as the Giants looked, I mean, Green Bay did not come out of that game healthy. Here you got a rested Dallas team, and you know what they're going into this game thinking, guys. We have to keep Rodgers off the field. So what are we going to do? We're going to use that big offensive line and Elliott to keep Rodgers off the field, and I think they're going to be successful doing that. Don't like Green Bay's defense in a really, really big game. They've disappointed so many times in the last few years. So I agree with Tony. It's going to be one of those shootouts, but Dallas is going to be up at the end, 38-28.
Wow. All right. Well, fellas, you look at Aaron Rodgers. Over his last 8 games, guys, 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's not making any mistakes, and his wide receivers are making big plays for him, including catching Hail Marys on a semi-regular basis. And, their defense ranked 8th against the run. They're allowing under 95 yards per game. So theoretically, that's a strength going up against Ezekiel Elliott. On the opposite side, the Cowboys' defense 26th against the pass. So to me, fellas, to me that says advantage Packers. So you know what? I'm going to go the opposite way, guys. I'm taking the Packers. I think they win a close one. I think it's going to be 30-24 Green Bay. All right, Tony, before we let you go, remind everyone all about all the great things you're doing to help kids go to college.
TonyCollinsFoundation.com, TonyCollinsProjects.com. Go on the website, make donations. We're giving out $1,500 scholarships to high school seniors going off to college.
Great stuff, Tony. As always, Tony, thank you so much for everything you're doing for kids to help them get to school, and for joining us every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Can't tell you thank you enough. We appreciate you, my friend.
Absolutely. You guys are the best, man. Great job.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Tony. Take care. We'll catch up with you again next week, my friend.
Yes, sir.
That is former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins in our Divisional Round playoff predictions. We've got our next guest, Willie Simmons, head coach from Prairie View A&M, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Willie on the other side of this word from our friends at the French Lick Resort.
Looking to stage a truly unique outing or meeting? Take the easy ride to historic French Lick Resort in southern Indiana. From 10 people to 2,000, we invite you and your group to share our amazing history and state-of-the-art amenities. Girlfriend getaways, family reunions, weddings, golf outings, all the way up to major business meetings, conferences, and events. We've got you covered at French Lick Resort. See all that we have to offer at FrenchLick.com. Traditions live here.
Hello, everybody. Van Earl Wright here, reminding you that you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with the dynamic duo of Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari, right here on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with us and making his 5th appearance on the Kyvan Foods guest line with us is Prairie View A&M head coach Willie Simmons. Let me give you some more background on Willie. He's from Tallahassee, Florida. In college, he played quarterback for 3 years at Clemson, finished his final year in 2003 at the Citadel after wanting to move a little closer to home to take care of his mom. That 2003 season at the Citadel, he was named first team All-Southern Conference. In 2006, he went back to Clemson to start his coaching career as a graduate assistant on Tommy Bowden's staff. From 2007 to 2011, he moved over to Middle Tennessee State as their running backs coach and later their offensive coordinator. He spent 2012 to 2014 as the offensive coordinator for Alcorn State before accepting the head coaching job at Prairie View A&M back in December of 2014. Over his 2 seasons as head coach now, leading the Panthers, he has had a 16-6 record after finishing 7-4 and 7-2 overall in the Southwest Atlantic Conference this season. And we're honored to have Willie back with us again here tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Good evening, Coach. Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Willie.
Hey, good evening, guys.
So, Coach, want to start out, kind of looking back over this season. Want to get your thoughts. Give us your assessment of the team and the season you guys had in 2016.
Well, this season was an interesting season. We came in, was picked preseason to win the conference by my peers. Of course, the coaches and media outlets vote for the conference champions, and we had a lot of guys returning. Our quarterback was a first-team All-American preseason selection and had a lot of starters returning on defense. And so there were a lot of high expectations after our 9-2 inaugural season. Kind of got off to a slow start. Had a very interesting game. The first game of the season in our brand new stadium had 3 lightning delays, so it took about 6 hours to play a football game, and we won against our crosstown rival, Texas Southern. Then went up to College Station to play Texas A&M and got beat pretty handily by them. And then we had a decent little run throughout conference play, and then we lost our quarterback to a torn ACL. Had to go with a redshirt freshman quarterback and kind of got through the season a little bit with him. And he got banged up with a ankle sprain, and then the quarterback who tore his ACL, the starter, had to return and play the last couple of games of the season with a torn ACL. And so we dropped 2 conference games, one to Grambling, who went on to win the Black College National Championship in the Celebration Bowl. Tip my hat to them. Those guys played pretty well this year, and lost a heartbreaker to Southern, our first home loss in 2 years. And so finished third in the conference with a 7-2 record, but did some really good things. Had some really good efforts by some young guys that came in the first year and played. So very, very bright future for us. We feel like right now we're bringing in about 8 mid-year guys that we think can bring us some immediate depth and experience. And we'll finish up recruiting here the 1st of February and hopefully put together a pretty good recruiting class that can get us over the hump, because we feel like we're right on the cusp of year 3 of being the type of program that we envisioned when I took the job 2 years ago.
And, Coach, it was the second year in a row that the committee overlooked Prairie View A&M for an at-large bid to the playoffs. And, the FCS division, or Division I AA, has, 16 teams in the playoffs. Why Division I can only do 4, continues to be a mystery to me. But you guys got 16. and you, like I say, you finished 7-4 this season, 7-2 in the conference. And, like you point out, of the 4 losses, only 2 were at the FCS level. So, and you improved your strength of schedule over last year. As you mentioned, you add Texas A&M, you add Rice to the schedule. And there was, when I was looking through the playoff teams, there was a 6-5 team that got into the playoffs. Yet you guys got overlooked for a second straight year. Besides winning more games, is there something else that you think you guys need to do to, to make the, selection committee take a harder look at Prairie View next year?
Well, I've spoken on this a few times. Like you said, for the second year in a row, we've been kind of overlooked by the committee. And that's one thing, I guess, whenever you have a committee, I think the important thing is to see what their criteria is. Even looking at the college football playoff, there were a lot of discussions about which teams deserve to be in. Did Ohio State deserve to go in, not having won their conference? Does Penn State deserve to go in because they won the Big Ten? So what exactly are the committee members looking for? And I think that's something that we on the LCS level need to define as well, because for us, last year we felt that we didn't get in with the 9-2 record because of our strength of schedule. We played an NAIA football team and beat them 56-0. We played Texas State, an FBS opponent who had a 2-10 record, I think, or 3-9 record. And they fired their head coach. So we felt that the strength of schedule wasn't well enough to warrant going, even though we only lost 1 conference game. So this year we played Texas A&M, who at the time was a top 10 football program, and then we played Rice, who had won a conference championship a few years ago with Coach Bailiff. So playing those games we felt would give us a better strength of schedule. And of course, we lost to 2 teams who at the time hadn't lost an FCS game. Grambling would finish the season 11-1. Their only loss was a 31-21 loss to Arizona. And then Southern only lost 3 games, 1 being an FCS opponent. The other 2 losses were to FBS opponents. So, we felt that those 2 teams were quality football teams, and that all 4 of our losses were quality losses. But again, who knows what they're looking for or what they want us to do. I think they feel the SWAC conference isn't strong enough to warrant an at-large bid if you don't go undefeated, apparently. So we're continuing to look at different ways to schedule. This year coming up, we're playing 3 Southland schools, 3 schools at the FCS level who hopefully they'll respect the Southland Conference a little bit better. So we'll see. Hopefully we don't have to have that issue because we win our conference and go on to the Celebration Bowl. But we just want to position ourselves to where it's not a conference championship or bust. I don't think it's fair to our student athletes and other student athletes in the SWAC conference and the MEAC conference to only have to play for a conference championship. Whereas if you're in the Mountain or the Missouri Valley Conference or the Southern Conference, you can be the 4th place team in your league and still get an at-large bid. So we're still trying to fight the fight and get more people on board with that to just get some answers and hopefully get a better system and plan moving forward to afford these young men the same opportunities that our PWI counterparts have.
Bob, questions for Coach?
Coach, it's always an honor to speak with you, and Happy New Year to you. And you had mentioned, Willie, the redshirt freshman quarterback, Morton. Just doing a little research on him, I couldn't get over his size. He's such a young kid. He's a big kid. Has a long career ahead of him, Coach. And just tell us a little bit more in depth about him, what his strengths are, what you think he might have to work on, et cetera.
Well, you're absolutely right. He is a very, very athletic, physically gifted young man. He's 6'3", 235 pounds. Was a high school baseball player. Can throw the ball a country mile. He has one of the strongest arms I've ever witnessed in person. Really, really big hands. So weather doesn't affect them. Cold weather, wet balls, none of those things affect him because of the size of his hands. And can really run. He's probably a 4'6", 40 guy. Really strong, breaks a lot of tackles. And so physically he has everything that you look for. If you're a spread offense, you want a guy like Jalen Morton physically being your quarterback. The thing he needs to work on the most is just his overall knowledge of the game. He hasn't played a lot of football. I think he only started maybe a year and a half to 2 years at his high school. So again, a lot of basic concepts and things of that nature don't come natural to him just yet. He's not a film rat. So we have to teach him how to watch film. We have to encourage him to watch more film, and just want to be a great quarterback. Deshaun Watson type guy, a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Those guys that love football so much that that's all they do. Just trying to get him to that point. But if he can ever get there, he can be a special talent because he has all the physical attributes that you would want to have in a quarterback.
And, Willie, I was also looking at some of the offensive backfield, guys like McCray and Broach, who will come back. Seem like they're very gifted, strong runners. And I would assume that you're not too concerned. Any guy like you would be a little bit concerned about us scoring points. But having played a lot of high-scoring games, I'm sure the defensive end of the ball is something that you're in constant meeting with your assistants throughout until next year.
Well, we definitely want to be a well-rounded football team. We don't want to be known as an offensive juggernaut. I think when I took the job, that's what Priarie was known for. They were scoring a bunch of points before I got there, but they were also giving up a bunch of points. So one thing we wanted to become is a balanced football team that we can be efficient on offense, that we can stop people on defense, and that we can really change the field and special teams. And we try to devote ample time to all three of those phases, and we've done a pretty good job offensively. Of course, we led the nation in scoring 2 years ago. Numbers kind of dipped a little bit. We went from 44 points to about 32 points a game, which still pretty respectable. And defensively, we did some really good things. We, for a long time, led the country in sacks. I think we finished maybe top 5 on average. But we still have to eliminate the big plays. We have to find a way to get people off the field on third downs. I think that's something that, talking to my defensive coordinator, that's something we really want to emphasize moving forward is third down percentage. The biggest change between year 1 and year 2 for us was the number of snaps we played per game. The first year we averaged about 79 snaps. This year we averaged about 62. So the yards per play didn't change much. It's a slight difference. So if you take the 6.5 yards we average and you multiply the 15 less plays to play the game, that's it's close to 90 to 100 yards less of total offense. And I think that was a big determining factor for us in the few of those games that we lost. We just didn't snap the ball enough. 60 snaps, 65 snaps is not what our offense is built to do. It's supposed to be getting close to 80, 85. You see the championship game, Clemson snapped the ball 99 times against Alabama. It's hard to stop anybody 99 times. So, we definitely want to get more snaps moving forward, kind of like we did the first year. So, but that means getting people off the field on third downs on defense, and that also means converting third downs on offense and not turning the ball over.
And, Willie, you had 6 players named to the All-Southwest Atlantic Conference team. You had wide receiver Joshua Simmons. You had a couple of offensive linemen in Donovan Wheaton and Gustavo Lopez. You had your defensive tackle, Devon Reed, and then cornerback Terrence Singleton, plus your punter Owen Houlihan. So talk about, those players and the seasons that they had.
Well, just starting on the offensive side, Josh Simmons was a junior college transfer that came to us from Navarro College outside of Dallas. Really, really fast kid. He's probably the fastest kid on our football team, arguably one of the fastest in the entire conference. Not a really big guy, probably 5'10", about 165 pounds, but can run with the wind. And he's our kick returner. He ran a kickoff return back against Rice. He plays outside receiver for us and really does a good job of taking the top off the coverage. So he has a bright future. Really, really hard-working kid, and I'm excited to see how he matures and progresses as one of our go-to players this coming season. The two offensive linemen were actually first-year players for us. Donovan Wheat was another junior college transfer, also from Navarro, same school as Josh Simmons. He came in last spring and really did a good job of competing and giving us some toughness to the offensive line and came in and played really well for us this year, like I said, well enough to make second team all-conference. So we expect him to be the leader up front coming back, and he's a real tenacious kid. Really, really loves the game, wants to get better, and that's what you want to see. Gus Lopez was a first-year starter for us. Moved him from guard to center. Did a really good job for us at center all year, and he's a big guy, a 6'3", 315-pound guy that does a good job for us. Can play all five positions across the line, so he gives us a lot of versatility, and I think that's what a lot of coaches saw from him when they were selecting all-conference guys. Devon Reed's been a 3-time all-conference player since his freshman year. He's been second team every year, so he's a steady, consistent, hard-nosed football player. Not the biggest guy. He's probably 6'1", 260 pounds, but he plays anywhere from defensive end to nose guard. So he's another versatile guy. Led the team in sacks, led the team in tackles for loss, and so we expect a really, really big year from him. And Terrence Singleton was a transfer kid from us from Baylor. Came as a fifth-year transfer cornerback. Did a really good job for us. Had 3 interceptions, ran one back for a touchdown. Played really well against Texas A&M, and of course all those NFL receivers they have. And Grambling has an NFL receiver probably, and did a really good job against him. So he was probably our most consistent defensive back, and we're gonna miss him and his athleticism. And then Owen Houlihan's our Australian kicker. he's kind of one of those Aussies. So. Really tough kid. He's gonna tackle guys on kickoff. He pulls double duty for us, handles our kicking as well as our punting. So really, really good kid. But again, of all those guys, we only lose Terrence Singleton. So the rest of them are returning. We have about 8 starters returning on offense, 8 on defense. All of our specialists returning. So the future looks really bright for us, and so we're just hoping to continue to get better every single day, continue to work hard and do the little things right. They all know I'm a Clemson grad, so everyone was texting me after the championship game saying we're going to be like Clemson next year. So I think the motivation is there for us to be a championship football team, and I really think we have the ingredients to really make it happen.
We're talking to Prairie View A&M head coach Willie Simmons here on Thursday Night Tailgate. And, Willie, just one more before we let you go to that last point about Clemson. I'm sure you were pretty excited at the end of that ball game. Talk about what it was like watching it and what you how you handled it in the last couple of seconds of the game.
Well, I'm actually surprised we didn't start the conversation with that, lead off with that. But no, I'm sure I'm like every other Clemson grad and former player. We're so proud of those guys, just the way they represented themselves throughout the entire season, all the pressure that they faced, the adversity that they had to overcome, being preseason picked, I think, second, and having to maintain that throughout the entire season. Deshaun Watson, of course, all the preseason accolades and Heisman talk, and just the way he carried himself throughout the entire season has really been inspiring to all of us. And so we're just so proud of how those guys finished. Going against Alabama, nobody gave them a chance, except every Clemson grad. I think everybody else in the country probably thought Alabama was going to win. But for the second year in a row, they found a way to really come out and play an explosive second half. I think 2 years ago the score was 14-14 at halftime, and Clemson did a great job of adjusting and making some plays on the offensive side. Just a special teams blunder and a busted coverage cost them probably 2 years ago. But the other night did a great job coming out the second half and pretty much put the ball in Deshaun Watson's hand, and he showed why he's the best player in the country, in my opinion. And those guys are just a great. The thing that I like about them the most is just how close they are. You can tell that they're a very, very close football team, and that's attributed to Dabo and the type of program that he runs there, and the assistant coaches for how they reinforce his vision. And you see a close-knit team play, it's easy to tell. And that's something that, again, I aspire my team to become. Hopefully everyone that was watching can see the type of young men that they're grooming there at Clemson. And that's something that I think we've always tried to do, and that's why I'm proud of my institution, proud to say I'm a Clemson grad, and walk around with our chest a little bit bigger now, knowing that we're national champs.
Willie, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can follow you and the program and all the things you guys are doing, both online and over social media as well.
Oh, no question. You can follow us, our football program, all of our sports programs at pvpanthers.com. Of course, we're in the midst of basketball season right now, but you can follow all of our sports through that website. You can follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at HC Willie Simmons. Of course, I don't post a lot. People tell me all the time I got to post more and get more involved in social media, especially as far as recruiting goes. But, of course, you can follow me on there, Facebook. So, again, we're just trying to continue to work hard. And, again, as always, I appreciate you guys and the work that you do for being supporters of me and my program and highlighting Little Prairie View, 45 minutes northwest of Houston. So, again, great job, guys. Love you guys, and anything we can ever do for you, don't hesitate to give me a call.
We appreciate that very much, Willie. Bob and I are both big Willie Simmons fans, big Prairie View A&M fans. You've come to mean a great deal to us over the last couple of years. Been very blessed to have you on the show. We wish you, so much success, and thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for everything you've done for us over the years coming on the show. We look forward to you having a lot of success in the recruiting season, and hopefully we get the opportunity to catch up with you again real soon.
Look forward to it, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and your family, Willie. Take care. We'll catch up soon.
Yes, sir.
That is Prairie View A&M head coach Willie Simmons. And, Bob, we talk about, all the time, top shelf guys on this show, and so many of the guests that we are blessed to have join us repeatedly over the years, but they just don't come better than Willie Simmons.
I love that program, and you can't help but love him, Chris. And we didn't get into it a lot tonight about his coaching philosophy, as we've done before, and he's an incredibly big on integrity and things like that. And I have to admit, every time that I pick up the Sunday paper, I'm always looking in the Southwest section to see the scores from Texas and wishing that team luck. But classy guy who follows the rules and is much more interested in his guys becoming good men in the future than good football players, as we know. And that's why he's a regular guest on this show.
Exactly right. All right, coming up here in hour number 2 of Thursday Night Tailgate, we're going to be joined by Richmond Webb and Russell Baxter. Before Richmond joins us, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Podbean who have been so very good to us, featuring Thursday Night Tailgate and our golf show Next on the Tee. If you're listening to this show as a podcast, we hope you're doing it via the Podbean podcast app. And the Podbean app, you can get instant updates every time we post new episodes. Their app and their site, free to use. They got great features that let you easily discover, listen, and even publish a podcast of your own. Whether you're on an Android phone or on an iPhone, Podbean is the best app for all of your podcasting needs. You get the app now on the Google Play Store or on the Apple App Store, so you can enjoy more of the podcasts that you love. And we hope 2 of them are Thursday Night Tailgate and Next on the Tee. And also, please, don't forget our friends over at the Gridiron Greats organization. Please help support a wonderful cause that's taking care of so many of the guys who literally left so much of themselves out on the field. And remember, folks, these are the guys that played way back, when they still had to get, off-season jobs to help support themselves and their family. It's organizations like this one started by Mike Ditka, the Gridiron Greats, that are there, trying to help, all the guys that we grew up watching and reading about. Please go to gridirongreats.org to see what you can do to get involved. All right, now joining us on the Kyvan Foods guest line and making his 7th appearance with us here on the show is Richmond Webb. Let me remind you about Richmond's background. He's from Dallas, Texas, played his college ball at Texas A&M, where he was named All-Southwestern Conference in 1989. He was also a team captain that season and winner of the Aggie Hart Award. He was part of, 2 Southwestern Conference championship teams there at Texas A&M back in 1986 and 87. He was a first-round draft pick, the 9th overall selection by the Miami Dolphins in 1990. Played left tackle in the NFL from 1990 to 2002 for the Dolphins and the Bengals. He set a Dolphins record with 118 consecutive starts as an offensive lineman now, folks. And to give you some frame of reference, that means he didn't miss a start for over 7 1/3 seasons. He was selected to 7 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1990 to 1996, was named AFC Rookie of the Year in 1990. He was also named to the NFL's All-Decade Team for the 1990s. He was inducted into the Dolphins honor roll back in 2006, and, really one of the big mysteries to both Bob and I is how in the world Richmond isn't currently in the NFL Hall of Fame. But we are excited that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Richmond, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing? Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year to you too, Richmond. So, Richmond, want to start off our time with you tonight, getting your assessment of the Dolphins this season. I think many of us were surprised by their run into the playoffs this season. What did you think of their season and the job that Scott Gase has done so far?
I thought he did a tremendous job. We started out in Seattle, and we lost that game, but I was impressed with the way that, the team played, and then we kind of hit a little slump there, and I think we went 1-4, and I think it was a big question because it's so hard to make the playoffs after a start like that the guys actually bought in and kind of came together, and they went on a nice run and making the playoffs after a long drought like what the Dolphins had. It was great.
So, Richmond, a lot of credit is given this season to Jay Ajayi for the season that he had, and boy, it was a really good one, right? Rushed for almost 1,300 yards. But, we know the offensive line deserves a lot of credit anytime a running back has the amount of success that he had this season. Talk about what you saw from the Dolphins' offensive line this season that helped make Ajayi so successful.
Well, I think, they kind of fed off each other. I mean, if you really look at the way, Ajayi runs, it's with an attitude. And, I think that's why he was able to run for back-to-back 200-yard games, which is a tremendous accomplishment. That just doesn't happen every day. So I think everybody bought in, even the receivers, and everybody, becoming more physical in their style of play, and I really think that helps them offensively in the passing game as well.
Bob, questions for Richmond?
Richmond, a belated happy birthday to you. I know you celebrated this week, and a happy New Year to you also.
Thanks, Bob. Happy New Year.
I was thinking, Richmond, when somebody, Chris, had mentioned your quote-unquote Iron Man status, when you came into the league and you played 16 games in your rookie year, starting 16 games, I'm thinking the year before, here's a guy in college, and no matter what level you're at, you're probably playing 11 or 12, so that's quite the jump. Richmond, what were you feeling like after that rookie year? Did it take its toll, or were you still young enough where you really didn't notice much of a difference?
No, I think it was about maybe around December. I counted because that's normally the time the college football season is over with, and then you have maybe a month before the bowl games. Bowl games normally start at the end of December or early January. But I felt it, and then just going through training camp, I think it was at least 6 weeks of training camp packed on to the 16 games. So it was considerably longer than, the college season. But I kind of hit a second wind, and then, we were in position to actually make the playoffs, and we ended up second behind Buffalo. I think we went 12-4, something like that, my rookie year. So made it to the playoffs. It was great, and I think that just kind of gives you a second win.
And on that 90 Dolphins team, Richmond, they did have a lot of talent and a lot of veteran players, your Marinos, your Jim Jensens, and, of course, Clayton and Duper, I should say. And I'm just wondering if there's any linemen or anybody on that team who made your transition to the league easier.
Well, me and Keith Sanders were two rookies starting on the left side of the line, or the blind side, which is almost unheard of. But we had the veterans that kind of really helped us out, Rod Foster, Jeff Dellenbach, and then we played right next to Jeff Hewlett, and we had probably one of the best offensive line coaches in the league at that time, which was John Sandusky. So we had enough experience, enough veterans and stuff that kind of surrounded around us, and if we had questions or whatever, those guys were, helping us out. So that played a tremendous part in our success as well.
Richmond, we read a lot, or we read sometimes about, presence that, whether a quarterback or a running back will give their offensive linemen as a way to say thank you, at the end of the season for helping them to have such a great season. Curious to get, Marino, any of the guys that you played with ever, present you guys, the offensive line, with a present, one that might stick out to you?
Yeah, Marino would always give us a nice gift. I remember he had some custom-made cowboy boots made. Those were really nice. And then we would also get other little smaller gifts. Like he had a deal with Isotone, so not only the offensive line, but he would give everybody those gloves. And then I think when I was in Cincinnati, John Kittley, he brought the offensive line like some nice watches and stuff like that. So I've been fortunate to play for some great quarterbacks and stuff that really appreciate what the guys up front do for them.
Richard, I want to talk a little bit about, the technique of the position that you played. And, you spent a decade battling, guys like Bruce Smith, some great pass rushers of that era. When the ball is snapped, what are you looking at the guy that, that you in your blocking assignment? What are you keying on to try to make sure you're keeping that guy in front of you and don't let him get to your quarterback?
Well, I think, first of all, it's several factors that kind of go into that, and it depends on the play. Let's say it's a passing play. Is it a 3-step drop? Is it a 5-step drop? Is it a 7-step drop? Because that determines how I'm going to pass that on that play. And then the guy that I'm responsible for blocking, is he like a wide 9 technique? Is he a 7, or is he a 5, or head up, or a little bit inside? So or if it's going to be a deep throw or whatever, I try to attack it. But basically, I want to try to get inside of the guy and then basically run him around, and the guards and stuff stay firm up in the pocket to create the pocket, and that's kind of the technique, I guess, or the best way to kind of describe it.
And Richmond, when you look back over your career, is there a game that you reflect on, that still, back when you think on it, it still brings a smile to your face to this day? And on the opposite side of that coin, is there one that still bothers you?
I think one that really kind of bothers, I don't say bothers me, but it was probably the worst one that I can think of, and that's where I went to Seattle on the road, played up there, and played a real tough physical Seahawks team, beat them on the road, and then we were coming back, and we had to go to Jacksonville. And I just think we just didn't have nothing left. But it was one of those games where it seemed like everything they tried worked, and I think we ended up getting beat like 62-7. I mean, it was just an embarrassment, and that one sticks out. I can kind of remember that game like yesterday.
What about on the opposite side? I mean, it's interesting how we hear so often that, guys like you, remember the negative stuff, right? Remember the bad game. Boy, it still sticks in your craw. But what about on the opposite side? Is there a game that you look back on, to throw that memory away, get that out of your mind, but remember a good time?
Yeah, I'd probably say it was some of the playoff games. One I remember we played San Diego, I think, in the playoffs, and it was kind of rainy. It was in Miami, and I think we ended up winning like 17-0, something like that. That was a pretty good game, and I remember, I think my rookie year, we played Kansas City in the playoffs, and I remember Dan throwing a pass Lamar Clayton at the very end, and I think Albert Lewis went for the interception, and Clayton caught it and went for the touchdown, and that kind of sticks out right now.
Bob, one more for Richmond before we let him go?
Sure, Richmond. This time of the year up here in New England, of course, it's always all about the weather. And I know you played most of your career, obviously, in Miami. Decent weather. Of course, you had to go on the road. But I'm wondering if you remember any of the old trips to New England or Buffalo back in the day where the weather was just horrific.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember exactly what year, but I remember we came up late December one year and was frozen, and your 7 studs or like the molded bottom shoes wouldn't sink into the ground because the ground was frozen, so it was really cold. And the only way you can get some traction, we wore like turf shoes on grass, which is almost unheard of, but that's what we had to do, and it worked.
Richmond, before we let you go, remind our listeners what you're doing now.
Currently, me and my wife have a wastewater company. Its website is environmentalmachines.com, and basically what we do service work on belt filter presses, the machine they use, and we can not only service it, but we can go in and refurbish it and make it like a new unit, and it will cost considerably less than buying a new one. And we also sell parts like pumps and belts and stuff like that they also use in those type of applications. So that's what I'm doing right now.
And Richmond, how can our listeners stay up to date with all the things you're doing and follow you on social media?
Richmond Webb is easy, and I'm also on Facebook, Richmond Webb.
Well, Richmond, thank you so much for coming back and being a part of the show again tonight. It's always such a treat for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you. Thank you for making time for us, and we hope you'll come back and share more of your stories and insights with us again real soon.
I'd love to. Hey, guys, thanks for having me on again, and I'll talk to you later.
It's always a
All
pleasure.
right, take care, Richmond.
Okay, bye-bye.
That is former Dolphins Pro Bowl left tackle Richmond Webb, and Bob, it's always interesting to me how the guys that we have on the show, boy, that one game that still sticks in their craw, boy, they can pull that one right up. We've heard that so many times, but and it's a little harder to get them to remember the good stuff, right? What was a great game that you played in? What was one that was a lot of fun? They have to sort of think about that one for a second. But boy, that bad game, boom, right out.
Yeah, you do remember those stick in the craw, and those are true competitors, Chris. And he was obviously a 7-time Pro Bowler. You and I are still amazed that this guy's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, if you ask guys like Marino, who would have been the beneficiary of this guy's greatness, if this guy belongs, it's to me it's a no-brainer. When you played 13 years, Chris, and hardly ever missed a game and did your job, I don't know what else they can look at. I mean, how do you judge a tackle who protected guys and could do both as good as this guy? I don't know. Maybe he'll get in someday, but well deserving of enshrinement in Canton.
Yes, indeed he is. All right, before we get to our next guest, Russell Baxter, I want to give a shout-out to our good friend Renee Shull over at Career Engagement Institute. And, folks, if you're listening in and you're upside down in your career, and what do we mean by that, right? You're ready to move on, right? Go to careerengagement.institute to see how Renee can help you. You've heard some of our guests come on the show and brag about Renee. Our Hall of Famer Toy Cook certainly did it not that long ago. So, and if you work with Renee for 2 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why Toy did that and why we brag about Renee every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate, right? We all want to work with somebody that we can trust too and who actually has our best interests at heart. And you know how hard it is to find somebody like that. Well, no one fits that description any better than Renee Shull does. She's a wonderful lady, very talented, the kind of person that you want to work with and have working for you. She's done some great things from some of our guests who have been in transition from being pro athletes and are now getting into the job market. So, folks, I'm telling you, Renee is just the very best. There isn't a better way to describe her than that. If you're an athlete or anybody in the job market, do yourself a favor and reach out to Renee. You're going to be so very glad that you did. Go to careerengagement.institute online and give her a follow on Twitter @IntegratedPlay. All right, now back with us and making his 13th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line, and is a member of our 2015 Hall of Fame class here on Thursday Night Tailgate, is NFL stats guru Russell Baxter. And it's always humbling for us to say that someone of Russell's stature, both around the NFL and in the broadcasting industry as well, is making a 13th appearance with us on the show and is a member of our Hall of Fame. And boy, you go back, and Russell's first appearance with us was all the way back on November 8th of 2012, so very early on in our show's history, he was good enough to join us. So, and be sure to check out Russell's website, Pro Football Guru. You see me posting, I've got the T-shirt. You should get one too. It's great stuff that you'll find from Russell on his site, and that shirt is fantastic. So make sure you give Russell a follow on Twitter as well. You can find him @FaxFootballGuru. And folks, I promise you, no one on the planet knows more about the game, and certainly about the NFL, than Russell does, and we're honored that he is back with us again here tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Russell, thanks for coming back on the show, my friend. How are you?
Well, as usual, thanks for the overkind introduction. And in terms of status, I am only 5'6", so I don't want to, disillusion anyone or anything like that. But and thanks for the plug for the T-shirts. As a matter of fact, I just picked up in the last 2 days. I'm fully supplied again. So small, medium, large, extra large, 2X, 3X, you got them. And give me a follow on Twitter, @FaxFootballGuru. Shirts are $20. That includes shipping. And 20% of the $15 it pays for the shirt goes to the American Cancer Society.
There you go, and it's a great shirt as well. I promise you, I got it in gray, and I got it in white once upon a time too. So I got them both.
I have it in gray, I have it in white, and both are stained as usual every time I eat.
All right, so Russell, the obvious place we want to start with you tonight is kind of getting your thoughts on the playoff games coming up this weekend. The first game Saturday, the Seattle Seahawks come here to Atlanta. It seems like a great matchup. You got the Falcons' high-powered offense, scored 540 points, this season, 8th most all-time. You got that matchup against Seattle's defense that finished 3rd in average points allowed. So what do you expect to see in this game?
Well, I was thrown off a little by Seattle last week. I actually picked the Lions to upset them, silly me. But, I think the pick was warranted because of what we've seen from Seattle this year, which is something we haven't seen from Seattle the previous 4 years, and that's a lack of consistency. 3-3 in the last 6 games. Stunk up the joint against Tampa Bay, got blown out at Lambeau Field, lost at home to the Cardinals. It's really hard to kind of get a gauge, guys, on the Seahawks in the last month and a half. And usually, down the stretch, Pete Carroll's team is reeling off 6 or 7 wins in a row, or they're 6-1, or they're 5 something. That's certainly not a 500 team. A lot of that has to do with the fact that their offensive line continues to be a bit of an issue. A lot of it also to do with the fact that here is a team that we traditionally, the last 3-4 years, with Russell Wilson there, among the NFL leaders in rushing. This year they ran for under 100 yards a game, 25th in the league, very un-Seattle-like. And Russell Wilson did put up extraordinary numbers. Again, the offensive line, a bit of an issue. The defense, one of the best. First time, how's this for a nice streak? It's the first time since 2011 they didn't allow the fewest points in the league in one season. 4 straight years. No team had done that since the 50s, the Cleveland Browns. But when it comes to consistency this year, you got to look at the Atlanta Falcons. And the consistency has come more on offense than defense. Defensively, they still have a few issues. They're certainly not staunch. The one thing they did get this year was a better pass rush. Talk about a jump. Last year, they were dead last in the league with 19 sacks. This year, Vic Beasley led the NFL and had 15.5 of his own. So they do have somebody who can chase the quarterback. But Matt Ryan certainly in the MVP discussion. We won't know that for a few more weeks. 38 touchdowns, 7 picks. You mentioned the 540 points, Chris, which is tied for the 8th most in NFL. I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'll give you two a pop quiz. The other 8 teams in NFL history that scored 540 or more points. Hazard a guess that how many more of those teams won the Super Bowl?
I'm going to say it's 0.
I would say you are correct.
Wow.
The 8 highest scoring teams in NFL history in one season have no Super Bowl wins. And if Atlanta gets knocked out here, they'll make it in the top 9. Now, again, things change, okay? You know, we're in a league that about a decade ago we saw a team go 18-0 and lose the Super Bowl. So there's a never say never. I was telling somebody on another show today, there are words in sports and words in football you should never use. Always, everybody, nobody, and never. Because we continue to get shocked. I mean, think about it, guys. When's the last time we saw like a major upset in a championship? Oh, that's right. Clemson beat Alabama the other night, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right. All right, so let's shift to the Saturday night game, Russell. You got the Texans going up to New England. Do you think there's any chance that the Texans defense finish, number 1 overall and fewest, yards allowed per game? Can they slow Tom Brady down enough or cause some turnovers to give what has been an anemic Texans offense, any chance to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, the Houston, as a team overall, Houston scored 25 touchdowns, okay? I mean, we have seen players do better than that in 1 year. Their offense only scored 23 because they had 2 return touchdowns. Inconsistent play, mostly at the quarterback position. The passing attack never really took off. Brock Osweiler looked like he was like walking on eggshells most of the year. He had some spurts, but for the most part, what Bill O'Brien managed to do, he got exactly what he wanted from one aspect of his free agent class, and that was Lamar Miller. Okay, Lamar Miller blew away his season high for carries, and he did it in only 14 games, he said, the last couple. If the Houston Texans are to pull this off, and I just said, don't say never, okay? All you have to do is go back to 2010. Now, recap here. In week 3, with Jacoby Brissett as their starting quarterback, Houston laid an egg up in New England. It was more actually like an omelet. Okay, they lost 27-0. If you remember right, the real culprit in that team, Osweiler didn't play well, but there were really 2 problems. They fumbled a pair of kickoffs, which gave New England short fields. They also gave up 185 yards rushing to the New England Patriots. In fact, Houston, as good as their defense was, the first 7 games of the year, gave up about $135 on the ground. The last 10 times they played, including last week, they're giving up about 71 yards a game on the ground. That's a huge difference against LeGarrette Blount and James White, etc. But if this game is going to be won by Houston, it's got to be Lamar Miller, and it's got to be a Houston running game that gets at least 35 carries, okay? And I was having a discussion on Twitter earlier today. Somebody didn't understand the difference between the carries and time of possession. Yes, you want to win time of possession. I understand that. But the carries are actually more important because the carries do this. They wear down the other. You can win the time of possession battle by throwing short passes and controlling the clock. But what the running game does is demoralizes the other team. It sets you up for play action pass. That's the way you want to do it. And if they can do that enough, they might not necessarily have to force the Patriots into a turnover. Okay? And by the way, New England has only turned over the ball 11 times all year. But you mentioned the number 1 defense. That's according to yards, and that's significant. Who would have told you that minus J.J. Watt for 13 games, the Houston Texans were going to give you the fewest yards in the league?
Right.
But one more. who gave up the fewest points in the league this year? And that happens to be the New England Patriots.
Right. So Russell, let's move on to my game, right? Sunday, 1:00. My Steelers go to Kansas City. Do you think can they repeat the success that they had from earlier this season when they really laid it to the Chiefs, 43-14? Ben Roethlisberger is a different quarterback, it seems like, on the road versus what he is at home. What do you expect to see as the Steelers go to Kansas City this time around?
Well, if you remember the game, and Chris, I know you do, it was a Sunday night game in Heinz Field. The Steelers were actually coming off a walloping 34-3 loss to the hand of the Eagles in Philadelphia. They jumped on the Chiefs early with a lot of long passes. It was 22-0 before you could say that dawn's early light, and then they rolled. And late in the game, it was more Le'Veon Bell. 18 carries, I think 144 yards. I don't believe he scored a touchdown in the game. If the Steelers play that type of game at Kansas City, where they came out through most of the night and then relied on the run, I think they will be in severe trouble. Because the style of offense that they're playing right now, which they transitioned about 7 or 8 weeks ago, this is really Le'Veon Bell's offense. Okay? And look around the league this year. For all this quarterback-driven league thing we like to talk about, where is Dallas without Ezekiel Elliott? Where is Miami without Jay Ajayi, as you were talking to Richmond Webb about? Where's Tennessee, who was 9-7 this year without DeMarco Murray? I mean, the list goes on and on. Where's New England, who goes from the 30th ranked running game last year to 7th because of LeGarrette Blount? The Patriots ran the ball 99 more times this year than they did last year. Hence Le'Veon Bell. Hence a guy who has touched the ball 222 times the last 7 games. I can do that real quick. That's about 32 times a game. 1,200 yards from scrimmage plus 9 touchdowns in 7 games. Talk about keeping the defense fresh. That's the key. And against Kansas City, which is not a great statistical defense, they give up a lot of yards through the air and on the ground. That offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers has not gotten enough credit how well they have played. But here's where you got to be careful if you're the Steelers, and we saw it, a little sloppiness in the fourth quarter last week, the turnovers. And nobody turns over another team better these days than the Kansas City Chiefs. They had 33 takeaways this year. In fact, guys, think about taking a team weakness and turning it into a strength. 2 years ago, Andy Reid's second year with the Chiefs, they had 14 takeaways in 16 games. Last year, they had 29, more than double. This year, they had 33. That's 62 takeaways in 32 regular season games. And that's where the Steelers can lose. Okay? Plus, they have a nice little combination, the Kansas City Chiefs. I call them the 2 T's, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Steelers defense, always vulnerable to tight ends under 3-4. Tyreek Hill is this year's version of Forrest Gump. But, and I sound like I'm going back and forth in this game because I think it's a really, really close game. The momentum that the Steelers have right now is a little hard to fathom, okay? And I think it's very, very hard to stop because they're doing it in a way that can frustrate other teams. Running the ball, that persistency, that's the worst. If you're in the fourth quarter of a game and you're down 13-10 and that team has gone just running and running and running, ask a player. I've talked to many over the years. The word that comes to mind is demoralized. Okay? And that's what the Steelers are doing right now. They're demoralizing other teams because they can't get their third touchdown drive last week, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, was nothing but Le'Veon Bell handoff.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And that sounds like old school football. That sounds like boring football. Listen, you can yawn a lot when they're handing you the Lombardi Trophy. Okay? And I'm not picking Pittsburgh to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying the style which they're playing right now is very hard to stop, and I think they beat the Chiefs on Sunday.
All right, so the last game, and I appreciate your support there, Russell. The last game is he's got Green Bay
at
Dallas,
this,
right?
Bartles and James commercial?
So we got Green Bay at Dallas, right? You got Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers on fire right now for Green Bay, right? They've won 7 in a row. Dallas's rushing attack, right? We know they're second best in the league. Ezekiel Elliott, all the things he did, rush for over 1,600 yards this year. But the Packers' defense, Russell, 8th against the run. They're only allowing just a shade under 95 yards rushing, per game. And the Dallas defense is 26th against the pass. So, is that advantage Green Bay because you got Aaron Rodgers on a roll against a weak Dallas defense against the pass? Or do you think Dallas's run game is just so superior and their offensive line is so great that Green Bay won't be able to hold them down?
Well, I'll tell you, the 8th ranking for the Green Bay Packers, okay, if you remember the beginning of the year, guys, they were number 1 early in the year. And then they ran into Dallas, and Dallas had a huge day against them. And teams looked at that. Now, Green Bay's defense also suffered from the fact this year that they had no running game themselves. I think we were like 10 games into the season before a running back for the Green Bay Packers scored a touchdown on the ground. Think about that. A couple of years ago, remember, we had the Chiefs, no wide receiver could catch a touchdown pass?
Right.
All right. 10 games into the season, I think it was, no Packer running back had a rushing touchdown. Okay? They had 3 rushing touchdowns. They were all Aaron Rodgers. And I know Aaron struggled early in the year, probably with accuracy. Had a lot of that to do with Jordy Nelson, a lot of that to do with the fact they just weren't in sync. But he's on quite a tear. I want to say 3 games in a row now where he's thrown 4 touchdown passes. He hasn't thrown an interception, I think, since he was in high school. He is blistering. And here's what I think is going to happen this game, because it is the Dallas second-round running game, and it is that imposing offensive line with 3 Pro Bowlers. And Ezekiel Elliott, who to me, for the most part, I don't know if he'll get it, but he'd still get my MVP vote because he helped change the culture in Dallas this year. They're back to doing what they did with DeMarco Murray 2 years ago, keep another team on the sidelines. You talked about the
Bob,
Dallas defense. You talked about Dallas defense and their rank against thing, and they're ranked number 1. I think Green Bay attempts to run the ball against Dallas and really test their defense. And this will be less about Aaron Rodgers and more about running the football than people might suspect. I'm not saying that Aaron's not going to have a day, all right? But I think this is going to be the Dallas Cowboys taking the taste of their own medicine with a little cheese on the top. And Green Bay comes away with a win.
Bob, one more for Russell before we let him go?
Yeah, Russell, I'm very interested, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about you being up here in the Northeast, about the New York Giants and the whole it's almost hard to talk about with a straight face because of all the headlines we've seen up this way about Boatgate and all the things. And what comes to mind to me, Russell, and my take on it is kind of like Eli Manning said. He said, I can't tell guys what to do on their days off, but if you're going to put yourself out there, you really have to kind of back it up. And Aikman was in that same type of attitude where if I'm gonna vacation in Miami and then take all the selfies and this and that, I'm not really giving the impression I'm doing all I can to try to prepare for a team, but just wanted to throw all that stuff to the side and get your opinion on the whole thing.
Well, I think it, unfortunately, fair or unfair in this day and age. In fact, I'll just throw this out, not answer your question. Mm-hmm. Say the guys did go down to Miami, but they didn't take the picture. Would we have been, or would people have been so much more critical?
True.
Okay.
Very true.
Unfortunately for the Giants, I've kidded about this, but, call it Gilligan. This is like their version of the Poseidon Adventure. Okay? They got on a boat, and everything turned upside down. Right? But don't give people ammunition to put you in that spot because, unfortunately, and to say this on this show because you guys do nothing but stress positives. Okay, people unfortunately are looking for an excuse when you lose, and it's a convenient excuse. Okay, no shirts on a boat. I mean, nobody's talked about a lack of tackling, a lack of this, a lack of that. You would have thought that the Packers beat Odell Beckham by himself. We know that's not true. Okay?
Right.
So, but why give yourself a discreet trip to Miami? Wait, but they didn't choose to do that. So, it's bragging in some ways. It's trash talking without it being trash talking. And people are looking for you to tumble, whether you like it or not. And people wasted no time on Twitter and the internet making up, all the jokes and all that stuff. I think if people make up jokes, didn't even know what the hell the score was. All right, so it's a shame. It's the side we're in. We're looking to point blame, and unfortunately, I heard more people talking about the boat than the fact that Aaron Rodgers had one heck of a day against a good football team.
It's true.
Russell, before we let you go, remind our listeners about all the places that they can find your articles and how they're able to follow you across social media.
And I got to do a shameless plug, if you don't mind.
I don't at all.
For you. If you go on Twitter and follow me on Bax Football Guru, how can I say this succinctly? You're going to get everything I write, whether you like it or not. Okay? So you can search all the other places. You're Bax Pro Football Guru on Facebook. Something I tried this year is an experiment, and I think I'm going to expand upon it next year. I actually did some team pages. We had one for the Patriots, the Steelers, the Cowboys, and the Packers. Gee, how convenient. We picked those 4 teams in September. They're all still alive in the playoffs. So talk about dumb luck. So any piece I do on the Patriots will be on the Patriots page, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, I got to make it 2 shameless plugs. And there's no better place to talk about my Facebook page called Sports Positively Speaking than on your show. Off the field stories, on the field stories, on the field pieces which are fun. We encourage people. I mean, 1 week, 2 days into it, we had 90 likes, including the promotion by you guys. We encourage people to post stuff on there. It's not a trash talking page. It's not a braggadocious page. It's stuff about teams winning instead of teams losing. So if you give that a like, it would be great. Now, something that just popped up the last 2 days. There's an app out there called Snap Call. I don't know if either one of you are familiar with it.
No.
Okay. Well, this weekend, one of the things to do, download the app, Snap Call, and you can, track a game. And this weekend there will be commentary on 2 of the games. They've been doing this all year. But I'm going to be doing a basic 3-hour chat during the Seattle-Atlanta game, throughout the game. My good friend Howie Schwab, who people know from ESPN for all the years he was there, he's going to be doing the Green Bay-Dallas game. But the way to get this and to hear us and ask us questions and watch the stats we do and so on, download the app, Snap Call, pretty simple. If I can download it, anybody can download it. It's a fun little affair, and just got affiliated with the last couple of days, and really excited to sit down Saturday afternoon and do basically 3 and 3.5 hours throwing out numbers and basically doing what I do with you guys for the last 4 years. Only it's the extended play version.
Very cool. I'm looking at it as we speak. It looks like a great app. I'm going to download it after the show and track you guys over the weekend. It's great stuff, Russell. Always a privilege for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you, my friend. Thank you for making time for us and being a wonderful member of our Hall of Fame.
It's a privilege to do what we get to do. It's made more fun by you and Bob, who want to talk about the game and have such good guests on to talk about the game. And for lack of a better word, not things that are wrong with the game. It's the beauty of the game.
There you go. Thank you very much for that. That means a great deal to us, Russell. Take care, my friend, and we hope we get to have the privilege of having you back on the show again real soon.
And just for your sake, I'm going to go work on my stature. That 5'6" bothers me a little. I'm hoping to be up to 5'8" or 5'9" the next time I talk.
Stretch it out, Russell.
There you go. Stretch it out, Russell.
You
Take
guys
care,
have a good
Russell.
night.
Thanks again. We'll catch
Good
up
night,
with you again
guys.
real soon. That is NFL stats guru and Thursday Night Tailgate Hall of Famer Russell Baxter. Always great stuff, Bob, and his analysis second to none.
Oh, yeah, 13, 14 times on this show, Chris. He's again, and it sounds like he's playing hurt tonight, and we like guys like that, right, Chris? But hope he feels better. But, yeah, he's the man you want to speak with as far as the stats. If you follow him on Twitter, it's just amazing the things he comes out with, really, really helpful and useful information, and I totally encourage that. And, again, when we have a Hall of Famer on, TNT Hall of Famer, Chris, it's always a fun night.
And, absolutely. And again, Russell on Twitter, @BaxFootballGuru. Great follow, great stuff. All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive, hear which players are doing great things in their communities. We'll do that, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we'll do it on the other side of these words from our friends over at Coastal Orthopedics and Kyvan Foods.
Are you suffering from ongoing pain from athletic injuries in your knees, shoulders, or hips? Tired of living your life with an old injury that just won't go away? If you answered yes to either of these questions, we can help. Dr. Peter Candelora and his experienced staff of medical professionals will get you back on the road to recovery. Their state-of-the-art facility and new medical technology will ensure you'll be enjoying life again in no time. Since 1991, Dr. Candelora has been specializing in joint replacement, athletic injuries, and general orthopedics. Visit us on the web at athleteinjuries.com or call our office at 888-825-1150. That is 888-825-1150. We're proud sponsors of the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consists of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's Kyvan 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
Hey, welcome back. This is Todd Washington, two-time Super Bowl champ, offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Go get them, guys.
Hey, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
Oh, I love this, Chris. I love this. And you're going to love this guy because he's another one of our finalists for NFL Man of the Year. And I didn't realize, Chris, until I started doing some research on how underrated this guy has been, and off the field, on the field, et cetera. But let's take a look at Pierre Garçon tonight, Chris. You know that this guy's been in the league 9 years. He split his career basically between Indianapolis and Washington, Chris. And very, very quietly, and he must just work and keep his mouth shut because he's one of these hard-working guys we never hear much about. Very quietly, Chris, he's got almost 600 receptions and over 7,000 yards rushing. Has never, to my knowledge, I don't think he's ever made a Pro Bowl, which is kind of crazy, but and led the league in receptions. You remember he had 113 back in the 2013 season. So his on-the-field exploits, to me, is one of the more underrated guys that I've ever come across, which is incredible in this day and age. But kudos to him for just his on-the-field exploits. Now, off the field, Chris, his family's homeland is Haiti, and of course we know there's a lot of problems down there. There was the Hurricane Matthew last year, the destruction. He's done a lot when he came into the league, he came up with the Pierre Garçon Helping Hands Foundation, which basically just goes across a bunch of different charities. But again, like I said, his family having had roots in Haiti, you remember last year, Chris, after Hurricane Matthew hit, this guy scores a touchdown during the Redskins' victory, and the next day he's on a plane to go down to Haiti in order to assist in the relief efforts. That's just the kind of guy he is. So he's very, very in tune with that. But back in here at home, wherever he's lived, of course, in Indianapolis and Washington, been very, very involved in the Boys and Girls Club. He always throws a party in the D.C. area, always the biggest event of the spring down there. And he's raised almost $500,000 for the Boys and Girls Club since he's been in Washington, just by that party he throws every year. And, of course, if you read it on the NFL.com, you'll get more and more. But he's one of the Redskins that's always, always at events. Whether or not they send him, he goes. He's just incredibly charitable, has done it on and off the field, and has lived his life in an incredible way, and is an incredible player still at the age of 30. So, man, great stuff out of Pierre Garçon. We salute him tonight.
Absolutely. That is good stuff, Bob. And, Bob, tonight I'm going to put the spotlight on Cowboys tight end Jason Witten. He started an organization called the SCORE Foundation and has launched several outreach programs and funded several new building projects in Texas and in his home state of Tennessee. 7 years ago, Bob, his Scorekeepers program placed full-time trained male mentors in battered women's shelters to demonstrate positive male behavior to the children that are living in those shelters, in kind of in an effort to help break the cycle of violence that plagues families affected by, domestic abuse. He's also routinely hosted children from the shelters for special events like Christmas parties, bowling trips, trips to the Cowboys training camp and that sort of thing. In 2010, he launched a new domestic violence program, preventive program, I should say, called Coaching Boys into Men, and that's in the high schools around Arlington, Texas. The program trains coaches, really, to educate their players on the dangers of dating violence. So, a lot of good programs there that he puts together. He's got some other programs, that his foundation assists with, like the Witten Learning Centers that are in, Boys and Girls Clubs in the Dallas area and, again, around different cities in Tennessee as well. So I'm going to put the spotlight on the positive on Jason Witten for the great things that he's doing to help women and children dealing with domestic violence situations, and for what he's doing for the Boys and Girls Clubs in and around, like I say, Dallas and throughout Tennessee. So kudos to Pierre Garçon and kudos to Jason Witten, two guys doing some great things to have a positive influence, on their community. So great stuff, Bob.
Yeah, Witten, one of the more solid dudes you ever come across, Chris. If you ever are doing any research into guys that are charitable and give back, his name always comes across the screen, and he's a no-brainer for the Hall of Fame. But when you can combine what he does on the field and off, that's one special guy right there.
Yeah, absolutely right, Bob. All right, Bob, it is time for us to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. We want to send out our thanks once again to Roosevelt Potts, Tony Collins, Willie Simmons, Richmond Webb, and Russell Baxter for joining us tonight. And, Bob, thanks certainly goes out to you. Always a great time spending my Thursday nights with you, my friend.
Now, we had a blast tonight, Chris. Those were some old friends, some new ones, but, man, very enjoyable and, of course, uplifting when we end the show with the spotlight. So, hey, can't wait to do it again next week.
Yeah, me too. All right, speaking of next week, who do we have scheduled to join us? Well, former Saints fullback Mike Carney will be back with us. Long time since we've had Mike on the show. Look forward to catching up with him. Former Chargers defensive end Bert Grossman will be making his TNT debut with us. So a couple of Chargers, because right behind him, former Chargers defensive back, also played for the Vikings and Giants and is one of our TNT Hall of Famers, Vencie Glenn, going to be back with us, as will former Colts defensive back Leonard Humphreys. And then, of course, Tony Collins will join us to go through the AFC and NFC championship games and our predictions for that. So we got a lot of fun on tap for you, next week when you come back, hopefully, to join us here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Want to remind you, how can you follow us on social media? Well, we've got a Facebook page. The show's got a Facebook page, Thursday Night Tailgate, plus Bob and I both have our individual Facebook pages as well. Give our show page a like. That's very important to us. You can find us on Twitter. I am at CT-mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazzari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. Plus, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free, folks, by going to our great podcasting friends and the site over at Podbean. So podbean.com. They've been so great to us. They've recommended the show. They've had us, as a featured show, on various places on their site, so all over the place, and on their mobile app as well. So if you're listening to the show as a podcast, we hope you'll go over and do it at our great friends over at Podbean. Plus, you can also, follow us as a podcast on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, Stitcher. We're all over the net, so you can find us on your favorite site as well. But we hope you'll join us over there on Podbean. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Okay, Chris, thanks for your help tonight. Always a pleasure to work with you. And our thanks to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you all the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.